Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the webinar today. My name is Joe Askren. I believe many of you joined us in the last session in March of 2020, so welcome back. And anybody new joining us, it's great to have you. I want to certainly thank our panel. We have a powerhouse panel. Can't wait to get to them. We have Carol Dover, President and CEO of the FRLA. Carol, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. Great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you, Carol. We also have Jenny Kruger, Restaurant Operations Consultant for U.S. Foods. Jenny, always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this today.
Thank you. We have John Horn, owner of Anna Marie Oyster Bar. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me on today. Awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time. And of course, Chris Tomaso, CEO of First Watch Restaurants. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So we had a wonderful session last time. I know it was trying times, but you all really stayed true to your word and came back again. And we talked about it at the end, and here you are. So thank you so much. I know you all are so very busy, so it's truly appreciated you coming back with us. So I also want to thank, of course, USF and the M3 Center and Moomin College of Business for giving us this wonderful platform. Specifically, Dr. Jihan Shobhanoglu for helping us set all this up and getting us going today. So thanks, Jihan. So here we are, 12 months later, a lot has changed. And let me just share, I'm going to share some quick stats real fast, and then we'll get right into the panel discussion, I promise. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And I just want to kind of go over some NRA statistics that you may have seen or may have not seen. And let's start with that, and then we'll get right into our discussion. So I would say it's clear from all the data coming in that restaurants have been the hardest hit sector of the economy, certainly. We talk about consumer confidence, how important that is, but how about operator confidence? That operator confidence is extremely important. So most operators, 6 in 10 actually, we're seeing that believe business conditions won't return to normal until at least September or even further into the future. Actually, if you dig down into some of the data, 10% believe that their business will never return to normal, which is very unfortunate. Now, there's some agreed upon ways to get back to this normalcy. And the two most common themes that we're seeing, these themes come out in the data. Number one is continued removal of indoor dining restrictions. We like to see that. That's helping out quite a bit. Of course, a more confident dining populace. Now, there's also been, payrolls have made some major shifts over the past year. We know that we lost almost 2.5 million jobs in 2020. Almost 400,000 of those jobs were lost at the end of last year in November, December. And then fortunately, nearly 492,000 of those jobs came back and were gained over the last 3 months, January, February, March. Fantastic. 300 of those actually came in February alone. So that's great. But to sum up the larger picture of the industry, we're still down 15% with jobs, right? 50% below pre-corona levels, which gives us about 1.8 million jobs still lost. And I think it's worth pointing out that these restaurant job losses are 3 times larger than the next business sector, such as arts, entertainment, recreation. So we're certainly the hardest hit. Now, with the lots of data that NRA gives us, and you might see in other places, but it's good to see some positive movement. Now, taken together, if you look at eating and drinking sales, that's what we call those in the research. The eating and drinking sales of January and February of this year are 5.1% over last 2 months of 2020 in November and December. But February is still, if you look at the February number sales, they're still 17% below where we were at pre-pandemic levels last year. Now, the change in consumer restaurant usage, that's a statistic that's also very interesting to get and to look at. It's predictable, but yet it's very interesting. Now, we've heard a lot about the on-premise dining, dining inside. That's all decreased. That's no surprise, of course. But I think what's interesting is to look at this off-premise dining trend that we kind of got into a little bit just a year ago, but we see the actual numbers now with takeout and delivery. That's what we're talking about there. Takeout and delivery, that's the off-premise dining. But it's interesting to see where it was, what it increased to at the height at the end of last year, and then, of course, what it's settling into. And for instance, there's a lot of different restaurant categories. We know that, but look at this. I mean, 77% of fast casual businesses rolled out some kind of curbside pickup over last year, the past year. And then if we drill down into these numbers and consider all three different meal periods, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there's been increases across the board with takeout and delivery. And just looking at dinner, for example, you can go to these NRA stats online. They're very easy to find. I can send them to you. But if we just look at just dinner alone, we see the off-premise dinner purchases for adults. And now this includes all generations. The NRA breaks it down into generations, which is helpful. But if we look at just all adults, dinner alone is increased by 6%. And then lunch is actually increased by 10%. As far as confidence, that's what we're looking for here, right? Fortunately, consumer confidence has improved. 55% of adults say they expect economic conditions will get better during the next 6 months. And then millennials, the ages 25 to 40, they're even more bullish at 65%. So I'm going to stop. We're going to kick out of this, and we're going to get right into the discussions here. I'm going to go to our panel and ask you some questions. And man, I can't wait to hear about your experiences. So could each one of you just share and maybe encapsulate your experiences over the past 12 months? And we'd love to hear how you're maybe modifying or adapting sort of your leadership approach and on how to survive and how to survive in this unprecedented time. So I think I want to start, Chris. We'll start with you first.
Sure. So I would say, since we're in Florida, pick your favorite theme park and pick your favorite roller coaster, because that's pretty much what it was. I don't know where on the tracks we are right now, but it feels better than where we were the last time we all gathered together. So different challenges now, though. So not to rehash everything, but at the outset, there was a lot of there was a lack of information. There was a lot of misinformation, and we were having to react in a vacuum and make decisions in a vacuum without a lot of information. So I think we all in our industry handled things differently based on our individual concepts. We happen to have over 400 restaurants in 29 states, and so I'm sure what John had to deal with, locally was different than what I had to deal with, and Carol has a different perspective, and Jenny has a broad one too. But for us, it was a lot of inconsistency, state by state, even city by city within the state on what we needed to do to comply and get open. And if you want to see the definition of insanity, just look how Colorado handled everything with these levels and colors, and sometimes one restaurant, a mile away from another one of ours had to do something differently. So we tried to adapt as best we could there. I think everybody knows that it's well documented that we closed all of our restaurants in the country for 6 weeks. And looking back now, I really believe that was a really great decision. It was probably the most difficult decision I've ever had to make, but ultimately it was the right decision. And now, vaccines are coming out, consumer confidence is improving, people are getting out more, and we're as busy as we've ever been. I mean, we had a record year in 2019, and we're comparing these times now back to 2019, and we're up significantly, double digits over that, and have set sales records in many restaurants. So that's the good news. The bad news is the staffing, and frankly, Joe, something you mentioned, the increased complexity with all the off-premise that we thought would subside as our in-restaurant dining increased, and it hasn't. It has stayed flat. So it's rather than look at it as a percent of sales anymore, we're looking at it as dollars per week per restaurant, and it's stayed relatively flat, which again is a good problem to have. But we basically have restaurants that were built to serve 140 people at any one given time, being asked to serve 180 when you tag in all the off-prem. And our off-prem went from 5% to 30%. So we more than quintupled our off-premise business, and we weren't set up to do it before. So different challenges now, but I'll definitely take the ones we have now versus what we saw back then. That's what we're all good at in this industry, is adapting and overcoming those type of things. And we'll figure it out, just like I'm sure everybody will.
Well, yeah, definitely congrats on fighting through it and getting through it and having some great sales recently. That's fantastic. Carol, let's go to you next.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Well, first of all, it's hard to believe where we are today versus where we were this time last year. We had closed out 2019, as we said a year ago, with record sales, record tourism numbers, over 131 million tourists. came to Florida in 2019. Unfortunately, in 2020, we saw those numbers plummet back down to the 80 million mark, which is almost a decade low threshold number. So, it's no doubt it's been a very challenging year. We had 1.5 million employees going into the high water mark, and over 934,000 of our employees were either furloughed or laid off immediately when COVID hit. So the good news is we're seeing some rebound. The bad news is, like Chris said, it'd be nice to get back to the 1.5 million employees again, because that's truly the biggest struggle that I hear today is what are we going to do about our labor challenges, which we'll talk about in a minute, because there are some things on the horizon that I think everybody should know that are being worked on. That I do want to roll back, if I may, the camera roll a little bit and go over some things that actually got us to where we are today. Because my 49 colleagues across the country, I can tell you, most of them are not nearly as fortunate as we are and would never have the sound bites that I'm going to have to share with you today. I appreciate you, Doctor, sharing the National Restaurant Association statistics, but let me point out something about those. The good news is those statistics don't hold true for Florida. And why? Because we have a governor that has been an absolute rock star. I don't care what party affiliation you are. COVID doesn't care what party you register as. It was hitting everybody. So we've had a governor who attacked it completely different from all of his other governor colleagues across the country. And he was quite criticized in the beginning for his approach. But, the rearview mirror never lies. His rearview mirror shows that his approach to it was correct. And so we've been 100% open since, from months ago, where we still have states that are struggling to get open. Where you were mentioning about your indoor seating, we've had indoor seating even when it was at 50% capacity. That was 10 months ago or 9 months ago. So we've been open for business here in Florida. Our governor has been ravenous about getting in the front line of vaccinations. So we've been, seeing the vaccines coming on more and more. He took a different approach to that than most every other state. He would tell you that I was beating on them every day to say, please put hospitality workers up on the, higher up on the rung to be listed as essential employees, when they kept telling me, push back, just wait, push back, wait. And he took an approach that was by age. So he started with our seniors. And sure enough, this Monday, every adult over the age of 18 is now eligible to be vaccinated. And that's not the case in most other states. So, we're seeing this approach helping get our businesses back up on their feet. The one thing I do want to address, though, and I think is probably the most important thing for people to focus on today, and that is that we hear across the board today the problem is labor, labor, labor. There's not a single member of ours that I talk to that doesn't tell me my numbers. I've got people coming in the door, but I can't keep my doors open if I don't have employees. We actually have some companies across the state that are closing, major chains. I mean, Starbucks, McDonald's, there's some very common names that you would see where people aren't showing up for, say, the afternoon shift, and they just have to close their doors. So what is that problem? What do you equate that to? Well, if you go back and look at how the unemployment system, how the governor and the legislature were trying to help people shepherd through the unemployment process because it was overloaded. The system was crashing. There were so many problems, but let's face it, it had never been tested to this level before. So what happens is a lot of executive orders were enacted that did things like it took away, you don't have to show that you tried to apply for 3 jobs to get unemployment, right? Well, there weren't 3 jobs to apply for back then. Most people were closed. Well, today, you can almost make more money in some cases if you stay at home versus going to work. And so what we have to get the word out is, folks, these jobs are not always going to be available. There are people around the country who are going to, 1,000 people a day move to Florida. There are people who are going to gladly take these jobs over time. So I encourage people to assess where you are. If you don't need to stay on the unemployment system, then go apply for a job because they're there. And we're encouraging the governor, and I think we're going to see this very soon, that people will not have to, they're going to have to go back to the old system, show that you applied for 3 jobs and that you were turned down for 3 jobs before you're eligible for unemployment. My members are telling me that once that gets reversed back into order, that's going to change the system drastically. And lastly, I'll just give a great shout out to, all of our federal leaders in Florida, from Senator Rubio and Senator Scott and so many others who worked to get the PPP passed on the first phase. And even though this second one is quite controversial because unfortunately $2 trillion, of which, 1% of it, I believe, goes to COVID, which is sad. But it did contain the $28 billion Restaurant Relief Act package, which we desperately needed. So it was a little bit of the chicken or the egg. 95% of the bill was probably not needed at this time, but the 5% that had to do with our restaurant relief, we desperately needed. So we have that coming, and there will be additional funds flowing for our members and our industry. So I think we see a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope the next time we talk, it's even a brighter day. So thank you for having me today.
That's great, Carol. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the education and enlightening us on what's happening in government. I got to agree with you. Our Governor DeSantis, I mean, kudos to him. We're so lucky to have his leadership. I mean, he listened early. He did logical and just sensible things very early, and we're very lucky for that. So, and it's interesting what you were talking about as far as the labor. Whether people could stay at home and almost do better staying at home. I was in a great call yesterday. I think John Horn was too. Well, actually, I know John Horn was because he was talking about that. We talked a lot about labor. These are a group of people that meet quarterly in St. Pete, restaurateurs and industry people. And that was one of the hot topics is how to attract employees because the jobs are there. My gosh, there's there's all kinds of opportunities out there. It's just the way things are set up with relief and with help. It's almost it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when we have all these jobs out there. Let's thanks, Carol. That's fantastic. Jenny, we're going to go to you, and then we'll finish with John.
Great. Carol, I don't necessarily care to follow you, but thank you for your insight. And wow, what a year. And I think, from a distributor standpoint, look back at what's happened. And I think since we talked last, I personally, along with 60 or so of my counterparts, have spoken on average with about 900 customers throughout the year. So we really took a deep dive on making sure we reach out and help people, help restaurants the best we can, obviously. And as obviously most of my peers have done the same thing. So initially, at the beginning, we went from, just like many businesses, we went from a team of a lot down to a team of a few. Unfortunately, we had some furloughs. They didn't last very long because we realized we needed everyone back really quickly. But that team bonded in ways that I personally never thought professionally possible. And I'm proud to say that it was for the betterment, not just for our business, but for our industry. We realized quickly what was working out there, like digging in deep, like Carol said, on the CARES Act, the PPP, any relief, the reform, and then shifting into social media, like we said, the takeout and delivery, making sure and inspiring that confidence to, at least at the beginning, do the takeout and delivery, and ideating on different ideas, unique experiences for our customers. We vetted a ton of resource for our independent restaurants, like blueprints when it was time to reopen, and ghost kitchen playbooks. That's been an enormous topic and a great conversation. And even if it's not necessarily a ghost kitchen, just somewhat of a virtual menu, so to speak, to enhance the takeout and delivery play for our customers. And And we're still doing that. We're figuring out daily how to communicate that to the masses, and we're not going to stop. As a company, U.S. Foods, USF also, we have found different blueprints, like I said, that work for our customers. So we're just keeping those evolving as we move forward, like agile and pivoting, like we've all said. Those words 2 years ago, I don't think were even in my vocabulary necessarily, but I use those multiple times an hour now when I'm talking to customers and my peers. So since then, our team of restaurant operations consultants has actually grown into an entire function within our company. I'm really proud of that. We just kicked that off. So our promise of helping customers make it is way at the top of our list. And then the rest just comes naturally with that. But as far as how my leadership or our leadership has changed, I'd say, I found myself leading more with compassion and empathy more than ever before. I'd like to think I did that before, but I think the whole last 13 months taught me that, right along with my company and my counterparts as well. But not just to our customers, but with employees, like I said, and peers. I've started to lead with a passion, not just for business or my paycheck or more cases on the truck. We found a much greater purpose by leading with a passion for truly helping people just be okay, helping them make it, helping them survive, and then hopefully thrive even. And the rest, like I said, it just comes along when it's time, and that's okay. In fact, I was conducting one of my first interviews in a very long time last week, and I found myself actually getting a little emotional explaining this role and actually what's happened over the last 12, 13 months and what we do to a prospective employee, which is weird. I know you don't get emotional on an interview, but it was real. And I'm proud and that our company is genuine in the fact that we get to lead that way, and it's very, very real. So
Thanks, Jenny. I mean, what a powerful story, from beginning to end. I think, U.S. Foods, they're just great partners in the industry and critical partners in the restaurant industry. And those blueprints for agility, as you were describing, I'm sure they've been very welcome. So great stuff, Jenny. Thank you so much. John, you want to finish up with just talking about experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And excuse me, what we all don't realize is we're all in the same boat. I was talking to my U.S. Foods rep, and he said Sunday they had 27 people that packed trucks not show up. They've got 49 and 27 didn't show up. So everybody's having the same problem. Some truck driver got a better offer in the middle of a route, bringing French fries from Atlanta to Tampa, pulled into a rest stop, unhooked his trailer with all the French fries, and left it there. So I can't imagine the problems that the broadlines are dealing with. I absolutely can't imagine the problems that Chris Tomaso goes through having, in 49 states, and much less all the crazy, government all over the country. We are so fortunate, as Carol said, I give her huge kudos. We're so fortunate that Florida worked the way it did under our leadership to open restaurants up, to do it safely. I mean, we didn't just, nilly-willy just open the door and let the devil may care. It was up to us to make sure our restaurants were clean, comfortable, safe for our guests. And that's what we concentrated since we opened the door. We're fortunate also to be in Florida. We can open outdoor seating. Just like Chris said, I mean, our to-go business has increased. Ours has increased tremendously because we started with a very small number. So it's easy to get a huge number from that. And say, wow, we're up 1,000%, when you sold $100 a week in to-go before. But we're doing a lot more than we ever did before. We set our kitchens up for it. And it's something we didn't plan for. And so we kept our indoor dining still at 50%, but I cannot put any more on because between to-goes, between the outdoor dining, I can't stress my kitchens anymore. And just to keep, I don't need to keep beating the horse, but it is a labor issue. Our sales are higher than 19. I'm down. We paid everybody during the pandemic, the 7 weeks we were closed. We paid everyone wages during that time. I am down 100 employees from the same week 2 years ago, or right before the pandemic. I'm down 100 employees, and I'm doing more volume than I did. So what does that mean? I'm working my 100 less employees absolutely to death right now. They're working so hard. They're working extra shifts. We're paying overtime. But so how is your management different? We're a lot nicer than we've ever been in our entire lives to our staff right now. You know,
Yeah.
we can't afford to lose anybody. So some of them know that. Some of them know that it's their turn. But we've always had great tenure, and we don't have a lot of turnover. But it's tough right now. I'm surprised that there's not more poaching going on, because I hear from. I mean, I've got a restaurant across the street from one of mine in Virginia Beach. They sent their whole kitchen home at 8 o'clock and stopped serving. So my to-go business went up because they were taking our food and going over and playing, whatever the trivia game. So there's a lot of places struggling right now. So we've got to make sure that we're doing the best we can to make it a wonderful workplace. But it's not just for our staff. It's got to be a great place to come in the confidence of our guests. You see it every day. I talk to guests every day that, just got our second vaccine, just got our first vaccine. The confidence is coming back in. They're coming back out. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I talk to that say, this is the first time I've been in a restaurant in 9 months. And you just look at them like, oh my goodness, But for whatever reason, they could absolutely have immune issues that they can't come out. But we're fortunate to be in Florida. But I know the supply chains are taxed to the nth degree. We're out of a lot of boozes that they can't get. So there's a lot of issues that we're doing. So what do? Do I get on the phone and yell at Jenny because US Foods doesn't have my French fries? No, I mean, that doesn't do any good. We work around it. And that's what we've learned to do. We become more and more understanding and what's plan B? We're probably already on plan C and plan D. But Chris, hats off to you, my man. I wouldn't want restaurants anywhere but Florida right now. I'll tell you.
Exactly. No, that's great, Sean. It's funny. I remember you and I talked, I think a month or two after we had this last webinar, and you did something else with me. And I think it was funny. I asked you, because your takeout and delivery just took off. And I asked you point blank, I said, what have you learned from this? And you said, your answer was great. You said, what we learned is we didn't know how to do it. But you figured it out very quickly, and you made some modifications, and you invested dollars in your facility as far as flow goes, and changing the flow to make it more efficient. So that's great.
But like Chris said, the plant can only do so many meals, and when you're expanding to carry out and any people that are in the dining room don't get taken care of. So you can't shoot yourself in the foot that way.
Yep. We lost you a little bit, John, there, but I think we got it. So we're doing good on time. So I just want to ask a quick follow-up, since we're doing good on time. So if this comes from the audience, and John, you kind of started out with this, and I think Jenny did too, and Carol, as far as employees, how do we attract? I mean, there's probably not a silver bullet. We talked a lot about this yesterday in that meeting yesterday, but could either one of you, and you could just kind of speak up and start going, just talk about maybe just key ways on attracting employees back to restaurants?
I think, Joe, a lot of it is.
Well, John, why don't you go,
John,
go first? John, go, then Carol.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think everybody knows the hospitality industry is a good paying industry. That, it comes off, anybody that's been in it understands, as servers, bartenders, they're making great money. It's so much better than, what they're getting.
Right.
Some of the people to unemployment. I'd paid them through, but then they're like, you're only going to be open 25%, 50%. So we've got to make sure they know that we're busy as we can be. They're making great money. And obviously the hospitality is the greatest industry in the world. So everybody wants to be in it. Right. We just need to get them back to us.
Right. Yeah. Right. Carol, you want to add to that?
Well, yes. So Joe, one of the things that we're encouraging to do is to start a national marketing campaign, because think about this. Think of the states right now that are still closed. Pipeline got closed. 11,000 jobs were cut in a day. People are dying in some of these states and desperately just want to work. Well, guess what? We have a new slogan. Come vacation in Florida for a lifetime. Because you can come here, you can vacation, you can work. We have jobs, we have 850 miles of the most beautiful beaches in the world. We have attractions. The weather's great. You start putting those ads out in Minnesota and Massachusetts and Michigan. And like I said, we have 1,000 people a day moving here anyhow. People are going to want to come take some of these fantastic jobs that are available. It's just time.
That's good. Yeah, I bet Chris is probably saying, well, how do I do this in about 40 other states?
Sorry, Chris. We're the right arm's
Coaching.
left arm. I'm sorry.
No, I can honestly say that, almost a third of our restaurants are in Florida, and had we not been as open for business as we were, the impact on our overall company would have been much more dire than it ended up being. So, I'm not understating it when I say Florida saved our company. And there's some states that still aren't beyond 25%. So it is. I mean, we have an advantage here in Florida to get employees, and obviously we all know what's happening with the real estate market here. It's on fire, and people are moving here. But I really think until there's some logical reform to the benefits and the assistance that's out there, like Carol said, where some of the the terms around that assistance were specific to a time period that we're no longer in, and that needs to be addressed, or else, in Florida, it's what, $875 a week now between the 600 federal and 275 state, and that's a $45,000 a year job to sit home. So even if you were paying them 50 to 55, someone might say, for $5,000, I'll take a hit for $5,000 to just stay at home and go to the beach.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? But great stuff. And Carol, that's great advice on just marketing people to come to Florida. I love that slogan. That's fantastic. Jenny, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I did. Carol, I am a living, breathing testament to your story. I came here on vacation 2 years ago and I haven't left. So it does work, and it's fabulous. One thing we're encouraging people to do too, and I think it might speak to a little bit of the technology. You know how we take inventory in our kitchens, hopefully we do anyway. And I'm speaking more towards an independent restaurant. Naturally a lot of the chains adopt that. I think it's time to start taking inventory on our labor. So how much am I spending on each individual task that you need done? And leading up into the minimum wage increase, for sure, we're asking customers to take that kind of inventory to see, just like budgeting, I'm going to have to pay more for that, and attracting employees is obviously paying more anyway, along with the culture that everyone's talking about. But I think that that's a really great opportunity for us to learn how to budget that and see where else we can pluck from to pay those people what they need to stay on board.
Fantastic. Well said. So I'm going to get to our last question, which is kind of dig into your outlook, your sort of future outlook for the future for the restaurant and F&B industry. And so what do each one of you think restaurants, restaurateurs, GMs, and chefs should be doing to optimize success and to just ensure longevity into the future? And I'm going to reverse the order, so we kind of flip it. So John, we'll start with you.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. I think probably the biggest thing is I think everybody feels good about the future. I truly do. I mean, as far as Florida is concerned, and that's the only place I can talk about, I think, as Carol said, I think more and more people are going to move here or vacation, or they're going to be staying here, because why wouldn't you? I think through all the pandemic and all the dang Zoom meetings we've been on, and everybody's sick of them, but it showed us that, you know what, we can work from anywhere. And so more people will be able to move to Florida and work in our area, and that will bring families that will be in the service industry. So I think it's going to be awesome. I think as younger people, I mean, we had the conversation at one of my manager meetings this morning. We're looking for more and more younger people, because I think our industry is going to go more technological than it has in the past. And I've got I'm one of them, don't misunderstand me, but I've got a lot of old dogs in our organization. And so we need youth that can grasp technology, because as Jenny said too, with the wages increasing, you're going to look to cut hours and figure a way to do it more technologically, more smart. And I hate to say it, but we've, obviously been in time that we've been going lately, we've been short-staffed. And so I've given my servers an extra table. We've gone to handheld, so they have a handheld that they can take the order in. They can handle more tables. So is the service as good? It's not quite. And, I'm not happy about it. But if you have to start making some financial decisions, you're going to. So we're going to need people that are technologically savvy. You're going to do an inventory of your labor, and you're going to say, I want the best of the best. I need the best of the best. And so that's what we're going to look for. And so it's going to weed out some of them. We're going to train and cross-train more people. I mean, I've got some that can go front, back, they can host or bus or serve. Those are going to be more and more valuable people. And that's what we're going to be looking for. Who can do more than just wait tables? Who can do more than just bus tables? Who can do more than bartend? I need someone that can do all of these things. So, and the other thing is, I need bilingual, because that's our market as well. That's our labor. So all of these things, I mean, I couldn't agree with Jenny more. We're going to inventory labor big time. And yes, it'll be what we pay people, because you have to do that. And it's becoming even more crucial. I'm on calls with different restaurateurs, and like, what are you paying a dishwasher? What are you having to pay a dishwasher? And I've gotten anywhere from $13 to $15 an hour. I've got a couple at 11, but when you've got staff that are, at $15 an hour, and all of a sudden you hire a dishwasher at 13, 14, there's disparity there. So it is all about hiring the best of the best and training to get the best of the best. I think that's where we're looking. And I was talking to one of my kitchen managers this morning, and that was one of his main points. I need somebody that can do everything. He may be in the dish room today, and he may be sauteing tomorrow. But if I need him to go help out, they've got to be cross-trained. So I think that's in our next 12 months where we're heading, because labor is going to be one of those key items. Jenny hit it right on the head.
Yep, that's great. I think you bring up a good point too, John. I think what some people just don't understand is even if you just pick on the minimum wage and shift that up, a lot of people don't understand that everybody wants to bump up. So everything kind of shifts up, and it affects everybody exponentially. So.
Yeah, the compression of all wages will increase.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Jenny, I'm gonna have you speak next about just what we can do specifically, what restaurants can do, what chefs and what GMs can do.
Thank you. I was listening to a different webinar a couple months ago, and it really struck me. Evolving landscapes is certainly imminent for the unforeseeable future. When I was listening to the speaker, I don't know if he knew how profound it really was, but kind of the musical chairs of restaurants. There's a lot that have sold. There's a lot that have closed. So naturally, there's a lot that are for sale, and there's going to be people that are buying them. Perhaps it's those people that are coming here on vacation forever. But you might not even be aware of your largest competitor too. If you aren't paying attention, they might be online, and they might not be a bricks and mortar. So I believe that some of like John said, the consumer experiences are going to change. And I think that's going to be across the board. So hopefully they don't realize it. But with the minimum wage increase, the total effects, what are they going to be? So it isn't all bad. But overall, I think your audience and your competition needs to be constantly reacted to. You need to be proactive. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be agile and maintain your brand, of course, but give your community what it wants and is literally hungry for. The fact that this will continue to evolve tells me personally those words like I used before, like pivot and agile, irreplaceable experience, unexpected experiences are kind of what people are craving right now. So continuing to lean in, of course, on takeout and delivery, but being able to pivot without too much of that wrong kind of pride, and maintaining your brand is to me a great way to look forward and to keep thriving. But another thing, if an independent restaurant hasn't received relief because you're so busy right now, it feels like I don't need it. Think about, and I'm not comparing minimum wage to a pandemic in any way, but what if we had 3 to 4 to 5 years to prepare for a pandemic? what kind of damage could we have done? We have that long to prepare for minimum wage increase. I mean, obviously it's scaled, but there's so much revitalization money out there for so many. Can you imagine what that can do for us in the future? So we are strongly encouraging people to take as much advantage of that as they possibly can. Our industry has earned it. There's no question. We have more than that time to get ready. So that's personally what our company's stance is. But determine what bucket it will come from when you take that inventory, and methodically with the time we have, let's get those funds to support us future. So if you need those technology things like John was mentioning, you have the money. You can get those things with that kind of money. So that's my spin on it.
Great, Jenny. Jenny, can I ask you just a specific question about those blueprints for agility you were talking about? How are those shared with restaurants that you work with? How are those given to them? Do you wait until they ask, or you just share it with everybody?
We actually have that on our website. Thanks for asking, Joe. I didn't want this to be a commercial for US Food, certainly, but we have the Ghost Kitchen Playbook. That's a consultation with me or one of my counterparts and/or our chefs on board, and we kind of give that out in small doses because it's a lot of information. So we consult with them to see, and individually with each restaurant to see what's going to work for them and their demographic and what their individual situation is. So the blueprint for reopening is online for sure. The Ghost Kitchen, you can schedule a consultation and have access to that no matter what.
I think it's fantastic because some of the hardest things to do is just doing it for the first time, just getting it going. And I think if they have examples and platforms, that's fantastic. Carol, I'm going to go to Carol next. Again, just what to do for the future, maybe what your outlook is, but what we can specifically do.
Okay. Well, Jenny, like now I get to follow you, but hey, kudos for moving here from out of state and staying. We love having you here. So, I think so many things have been learned from this past year. I mean, there's no question. Nobody wants to, minimize how tragic COVID has been and the losses that families have seen and the things that have happened. But I'm one of those that also has to look at life as that glass is half full. So, trying to live each day thinking about what have we learned from it. As an industry, I think we work smarter. I think so many of our members' takeout was like not even in their playbook. Especially think of some of our white linen restaurants that like it was almost offensive to think about. You mean I'm going to start takeout? And so many of them found out, not everybody wants to leave work, feel like they have to, sit in. It's not just because of COVID. Some people just want to go home, but yet want to take a meal home. So I think takeout has changed our world and it is here to stay. Some things that the legislature have learned, of course, we're a little over halfway through session, so I can only talk to you about one piece of legislation that has definitely passed and been signed, which is critical to our industry, was the COVID Liability Protection Act, which the governor signed a week ago. That bill gave our industry confidence that, they do everything by the book, they're going to be protected. And so that was huge. And we, again, commend our governor and the legislature for getting that done immediately. Alcohol to go. I can remember if we had mentioned alcohol to go 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago, it would have been hair on fire, not a snowball's chance, like it's going to cause DUIs and all kinds of problems. And guess what? Alcohol to go has now been in effect for a year, and it has worked very well. And in fact, it has kept many of our members' doors open. They will tell you that but for alcohol to go, that was the little bit of profit that they got at the end of the day that they would not have otherwise seen. So I think we have a lot of other, pending legislation that I won't get into today that, hopefully will pass as well and will change our world and continue to make the future brighter. And we beat labor to death. But I do think what everybody said about minimum wage, and we fought so hard as an association to kill the minimum wage increase. And too many servers think, or people think that we were just fighting against people making more money. It had nothing to do with it. In the middle of a pandemic, when we're on life support, trying to keep our doors open, to take, a 70% pay increase only forces people to figure out how to think smarter, just like I said. So John hit on it, and so Jenny, technology is going to be the next. People thought we were kidding when we were saying that, technology is going to start replacing some of our positions. We have robots now that make French fries and wait tables, and people, used to laugh at that, and it's the real thing now. So I think really at the end of the day, to close this out, what have we learned from this horrible, tragic, and very trying year is that everybody learned to, I think smarter, work smarter. We all found out that, myself, I don't have to be on an airplane, 4 to 5 days a week in another city, living out of a hotel room in a suitcase. I actually get a different quality of life. I get to be home some, and not, because we all learned how we can work on things like this, on Zoom and webinars. Never to replace in-person meetings, don't get me wrong, because I think we're all hungry and looking forward to that. But I just think the soundbite would be work smarter is what we're going to do for the future.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we actually had a couple of people actually comment on that, make that and use that exact word, just working smarter. Chris, go to you next on that final question. Just what to do in the future, and what you think the outlook might be for our restaurant future.
Yeah, I think our, all the work that we've done to adapt as an industry over all this time is not going to stop now. It wasn't a kind of a in and out thing. This is now something we're going to have to deal with going forward. Different outcomes from it. So now it's shifted to labor and supply chain and other things. But I don't want to say we were on autopilot as an industry, because we weren't. But I mean, we kind of knew our day to day, our in and out, our food costs, our labor, and those type of things, and all of that's been upended. And even how the customer wants to use us and those type of things. I happen to be I guess I'll call it a traditionalist, where, for us, our experience is about the in-restaurant dining experience. And I appreciate that people want to get our food to go, but I think it was done during an unnatural time, an unnatural environment where safety was a concern. And I would be more than happy to go back to where we were before and focus on the in-restaurant customer. And I know one thing's for sure: we will not sacrifice that in-restaurant dining experience to accommodate extremely less profitable off-premise sales that clog up our kitchens and aren't what we want to do. So for us, the ability to continue to adapt without not evolving, I guess is the best way to say it, is what we're all going to have to challenge ourselves to do going forward, just based on the new reality.
That's great. Chris, I had a question come in, and I might ask you first, and then we can go to anybody else that wants to comment on it. And I think they call them streeteries, right? Streeteries, as far as, using parking lots and sidewalks to sort of extend your seating for outdoor. That seems to be very big right now. And I was going to ask you, Chris, specifically, is First Watch doing any of that or using any of those techniques? And if they are, do you think that might stick around after things sort of settle down?
Yeah, we're taking a lot of that into consideration. So even during COVID, we opened 35 restaurants, and we're going to open probably another 40 this year. And what we did during the time we were closed is we thought about how to evolve our footprint and our boxes to accommodate the business we want to do. So, for example, we just opened a new restaurant in Winter Park, Florida, that has 2 make lines. One is just for off-premise, because that, again, is meant to protect the integrity of the in-restaurant dining experience, but still accommodate that. So we're looking at things like that. We're looking at dedicated pickup windows on the side of the building so that third-party delivery drivers aren't coming into our already crowded lobby areas, and again, just keep it separate. So there's a lot we're doing as it relates to that. Will we put drive-throughs in? I don't see us doing that. That's not what we're about. I do want to stay true to the core of who we are and what people expect from us and what they've told us they like from us, which is the hospitality, the in-restaurant dining experience, and the chance to relax in a busy day and have a nice brunch with their family. So you're just going to see us focus on that, but we're not being naive to what the consumer is telling us.
Yeah, that's great. Certainly besides your great food in John's restaurant too, it's the people that's the reason why I go there time and time again. So, and I really appreciate what you say about protecting that original concept. I mean, that's very interesting because that's why people went there to begin with. So, fantastic. John, do you want to add anything to that as far as the streeteries that have kind of happened and where they might go?
Well, I mean, obviously we're doing a lot of outdoor dining, and like Chris says, if you're looking to expand or open a new, you've got to take that into consideration. It will be part of the hospitality moving forward because, just I think people are going to be comfortable elsewhere. They're going to be comfortable eating at home. They're going to be comfortable eating apart. It's going to take a while before people are comfortable with people right near them. Even with vaccinations, they're still we got people that feel there's another COVID not too far away. So there's a lot of things that have people nervous. So we've got to look at that. And just like Jenny said, if we could plan 2 years ahead, well, we've got to plan for worst case scenario. No, we're not going to put drive-throughs like Chris says at the restaurant. But I mean, again, we're fortunate to be in Florida where we can sit outside 350 days out of 365. And we can do our dining, but if we couldn't, our sales would not be where they are. We wouldn't be that fortunate. And look at New York. I mean, you can't use outdoor dining a third of the year, maybe. So we're able to do it as we are now. So I think it's crucial to keep the street side. And a lot of our communities the city governments have been unbelievably open to relieving some of the regulations and allowing people to basically encroach on city sidewalks and so forth. They're doing so many communities have stepped up to help every business through this, and that's crucial for everybody, obviously.
Great. Jenny, Carol, anything to add on what I just brought up as far as the streeteries or anything else?
We're seeing across the country a lot of that, just making sure people are maintaining their, like I said before, their brand, and not altering, like alluding to Chris, if you're eating in a street, make it pretty, if you're going to do something and make people still feel like they're having that experience. I think there was a lot of, they're very open. The consumer was so open to that, especially in Florida right out of the gate. I think thoughtfully, yes, that could certainly be an option, and we're seeing a lot of it.
Yeah. I like what John and I guess you said too, Jenny, is planning for the future. It's something I did. I have got a graduate business class this past summer. I'm sorry, it was in the fall, this past fall, 2020. And my grad students were working on a business plan for a person that wanted to open up a new restaurant in Sarasota. And so one of the things they put in that business plan was how to deal with COVID and all those other, protocols and systems and how it's going to affect accounting and things like that, and of course, the flow and everything else. And just a semester or two before that, I would have never put that in there, but there it was. So it's interesting. Well, I want to thank all of you for your time. I know you're also very busy. You guys are just wonderful, very generous people with your time. We USF appreciates your engagement with our community, with our students, with everybody watching. And I kind of want to just plug something coming up in like another 45 minutes, and you might find this interesting too. This is our School of Hospitality in Mumo. We're putting on our second hospitality career forum. It happens in about 45 minutes, and we invite, actually the M3 Center has a wonderful list of community colleges and other schools all over the country in 50 states. And it's a list of about 500, 600 people that we reached out to, inviting them to this career forum. So we're going to be talking about opportunities how to find opportunities in a hospitality career, how wonderful it is. I'm going to have some of my colleagues on there. We're going to have former student, former graduate on there too. So we're doing this twice this semester, and we think it's a great way to just attract people, not only to our program, but to the hospitality field in general. So that was plugged in an earlier email, and it's out there somewhere. And if you want to jump on that later, I'm talking to the panel right now. I'll certainly invite you to that. But I just kind of want to let you know what we're doing, and I think that's going to hopefully help our industry a little bit here locally. Thank you so much, folks. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
Thank you.